I've nothing but my name. I've nothing but my name.
In a shabby raincoat, where are you tonight? Cheap purple baby doll dress, a gardenia in your hair, much taller and stronger than me, a forbidden dream, a dream, a dream. All I wanna do is tell Gardenia what to do tonight. All I wanna do is tell Gardenia what to do tonight. Gardenia, where are you tonight? Shit. The streets were your home. Now where do you roam? Your hourglass ass and your power.
Here for a couple days now, and then I'm going to Hollywood. I did a theme song for a movie called Gold. Danger Mouse produced it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Then
That's cool.
they asked me to go out and flog it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so I'm gonna go
That's
talk
all right.
about that.
Cheers.
Hey, this is pretty nice with the ice
Yeah, I
and
like
the
this,
Stooges
like, ice.
glass. Great.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, these
Nice
are
coffee and like
Stooges.
Stooges glasses.
I was very proud when we first started having merchandise, because we were all in our 60s. Like,
Yeah, it's-
we've got merchandise like Kiss, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the original Stooges tours didn't have a merch table.
No, there's no merch. There was no merch of any Stooge tour.
You're good to go? Iggy, congratulations on Post-Pop Depression. Best album of the year, 2016 from Rough Trade. Yeah!
Yeah.
Deservedly so.
Josh Homme, Dean Fertitas, Matt Helders.
Good record.
Hey, thank you.
Really good record.
Thank you.
Really like it. I love Breaking to Your Heart.
Thank
But my
you.
favorite song, Gardenia.
It's a goodie.
That's a beautiful song.
The
But who is Gardenia?
Gardenia was a very tall, very black, very strong young woman who liked junk.
Whoa.
And she lived in San Francisco, and I met her during one of my scrape by the Harry Rini Chin Chin tours. If it wasn't Mabuhay Gardens, it was one of those clubs in North Beach, and I hung out a little with her. She dressed shabbily, but she was a physically impressive alien presence. Not totally unlike Angel Food McSpade in the Robert Crumb comics. So she went to the gig with me in North Beach, and Allen Ginsberg came.
Wow.
America's greatest living poet was ogling you all night.
And she wore a little tiny, very cheap polyester baby doll dress. And this was a very large woman. She was over 6 feet, big, powerful limbs, and devil eyes. Ginsberg went crazy. Gardenia, you know, and she wore a gardenia in her hair to the gig, and he was just ogling on her all night. He was like, well, you okay, but gardenia, damn, you know, and he was just fascinated with her. I was quite poor at the time, so after the gig, and I stayed in a cheap motel by a cloverleaf interchange out by the highway there,
Yeah.
with like a purple lettering, you know, and it's like gas food lodging sort of place. And I took her back with me. And that particular night, you know, I gave it all to the audience. This happens a lot with me. You know,
You'll never know. You'll never know.
Well, no, we'd done that
okay.
otherwise. Thank God, or I probably would have killed myself. You know? So that was Gardenia, and I never saw her again. And
Wow.
years later, in the 90s, I was having a sexually dry period, and also emotionally. I'm the kind of person that I will do risky things, but before I do, I like to have a think about it, and maybe even write it out. So I wrote 12 essays about different people that had made a big impression in my life, but with whom I'd also been intimate. You know, there was one girl who, she was leaving my room and she slammed the door on her finger and the tip fell off. I was like, who do I call? The bass player. Or do you call the bass player in a situation like that, right? You know, so things of this nature anyway, and she was the subject of one of the essays, and I was looking for something to put a little boy girl in the new record. So I thought, well, so I dug it up.
Where are these essays?
There were 12 of the originals written on an old Brother typewriter.
Oh,
Yeah, are here in the house. I contacted a guy at Grove Press in the 90s. I said I could do 52 of these and call it 52 Pickup. And he sort of went, well, man, this is an interesting riff, but maybe, you know, I could give you some guy, you know, one of those.
I know that guy.
You know, right? Yeah, of course you do. You know, a New York weasel, right? And I thought, well, fuck you, weasel, you know. But I still have the list of 52, and I did 12 of them.
Yeah.
I didn't want to forget them.
Anybody would publish anything you write. So
Maybe I should do that.
What's this book that Third Mind's doing? Like, isn't there like, I saw it listed.
That was just.
That's coming out?
Yeah, that was a guy.
It's your book though, right?
It's his. There was a guy who was head of video when I was at A&M named Jeff Gold. He was a good guy.
Right.
Yeah, I liked him. He got me good directors to work with. I worked with Sam Raimi, David Fincher, and Nick Egan under his aegis. And he's now a major rock collector, which means he's one of these
he's
one of these
famous.
shady guys that goes around to, like, you know, widows and you know, bad sons. And I just told him the whole history of the group as I remembered it.
For me, being into, like, you know, noise and art rock, you know? And I always hear a story about the Psychedelic Stooges' first gigs being like, you know, hair dryers and vacuum cleaners, hoovers on stage. But I've never heard any, there's no document.
It was never taped, no.
Yeah.
Those gigs sounded a lot like LA Blues on Funhouse.
Which is where we start.
Yeah, okay.
For bands like us,
Sure,
it's like LA Blues is like, whoa, like, what is going on here? Are there photographs of at the Grandee? Like,
there is a photograph in there. They have found one of Scott. I rigged up 2 55-gallon oil drums for him on their side, and I found that a regulation bass drum pedal would fit the lip of the oil drum. You could play them as bass drums. We had them mic'd up with Radio Shack contact mics, and he used a solid wood beater. They're loud as fuck, sounded great. And then instead of toms, he had timbales and a standard snare drum and cymbals, and he was using plastic parade beaters that I knew about because I'd been in bands in school band, you know, and those things are like, they have a knob on them like that, and I mean, you hit something, wow, you know. Ron and Dave were the pranksters in the group. They'd stay up late, smoke marijuana, watch TV, and think up. So they painted them white and then put Dayglow slogans on them, like tits, pussy, you know, like shit, you know, stuff like that. And then, but also the, because it was a psychedelic area, they had the Indian peace symbol on the front. And there is one picture of that. The vacuum cleaner I was playing because Ron was coming up at first with these very, very basic riffs, even more basic than the first album. Like one was, I can sing it, it was dan 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 da 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 dan 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 da 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 dan 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 da 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 da. But Scott would play it and it was groovy. And he's doing it with a wah-wah pedal. And so I thought, well, there needs to be something. I wasn't the greatest singer, but I could sing a little something. I said, well, what else could I do? So I had the idea that I could make the sound of the whistling wind. So I found by putting my thumb over a vacuum cleaner. I think one day I was vacuuming or something, and I went, wow, that's cool, right? So that was, I would do that, stuff like that. And then later when we started getting gigs, I got a little money. I bought an air compressor because, you know, way better. I went professional, right? We had this Harry Parch record, and I was trying to influence these guys who were sort of like, can we all just be rock stars now? I think, no. All the rock stars live in England or San Francisco or sometimes Hollywood, and we don't live there, and we're too young. You can't be rock stars. You're going to have to be something a little more exotic. I'm working on this. I've thought about this, right? So I would play Harry Parch records, and Ron's reaction would be, hey, let's turn off all the lights and I'll dress up as a hunchback and run around the house. But my reaction was I tried to build my own cloud chamber. I took a broomstick and I got different spring water bottles and emptied them and put different amounts of water in them, and I would hit them with a parade beater again, and the big one would go boom, and the littler one would go boom, and the really little one would go and it was cool. And then one day it fell down and there was water everywhere and it was too cumbersome. So I had a few different things. Another one was when we were starting the group, I didn't know from effing amps. And I worked as a waiter until I had enough money to buy an amplifier, and I bought a custom. Those are crap. You know, the black, with the tuck and roll, right? I guess now people love it. They're coming back or something, but they weren't rocking, you know what I mean? They were more like Doorsy. So I bought this custom with a separate head, you know? And it was just sucked, and I felt so depressed. It was good for nothing, but later it had this reverb on it. And I thought, well, what would happen? I noticed every time you touch it, the reverb would go, So what would happen if you just knock it off the speaker and on the floor? What makes it really big? So that was on our first gig. That was Dave's job, to just take the top of the amp and throw it on the floor at a certain place, roughly certain place in one of these compositions we had for those gigs.
Who's the witness for that gig?
John Sinclair was there.
Right
from the get-go. Wayne Kramer came to those gigs. He was a few young girls and boys who, you know, extreme Detroiters. You know what they're like.
The ones who
you know, they want to be stoned, or they want to be somebody, or they want to be arty, or they want to get out. Those kind of kids would
Did you have any vision, even at that time, like, we're going to become a rock and roll band at some point? Was there any idea, like, let's actually play rock and roll?
I always thought we were in that game.
Yeah.
Always. When we started, we had me as the main instrumentalist, and I fired myself because I wasn't rocking enough. And I realized those two boys, they can rock.
Yeah.
I can think about it, but they can rock. I don't have the touch for this. And at that time, you needed to rock. What were we going to do? We couldn't even play Johnny Be Good. You know? We couldn't play it. Right. You know, that would, so, you know.
And you're supposed to. Everybody's supposed to play
Johnny Be Good. Exactly. That's what you're supposed to do.
Way down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, back up in the woods among the evergreens, there is a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny Be Good. He never ever learned to read or write so well. You can't play it either. That's so great.
I can play. I don't play the guitar.
But in a way, we were absolved of all sorts of an entire life of mediocrity because we couldn't play it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
you jumped to your own thing.
We jumped to our own thing. Where we made the big leap was after we got actually signed a record contract. Then I realized, oh shit. Yeah. We need to have songs. They need to have a beginning and ending. Yeah. My words would change every night. I just kept the titles.
What did Danny Fields hear when he saw you? Because he signed you, obviously, on the piggybacking off the surprise line. But what did he hear?
He didn't do anything but give us just sort of this great interest on a cool level.
Yeah.
But he never sat around and said, now let's talk about what you guys are doing or anything like that, you know? He let me know, look, it would be good for you if you go meet Gloria Stavers on 16 Magazine, or, you know. Yeah. It would be good for the group if you get your picture taken by Peter, this guy I know, I didn't know, but you know, that sort of thing. He sort of guided me into the, navigated me into certain cultural waters. But we were aware of them. We met Andy Warhol in Detroit before we had the group fully together, when we were still telling people we had a group, you know, as some groups do. You know, we got a group. You know, we didn't have a group yet, but...
When I first saw the name, the Stooges, like probably around 70, 71 or something, I started becoming aware of it. And I was really sort of curious about like why a group would call themselves that, because when you think of the Stooges, you think of Moe, Larry, and Curly, obviously, and I was just like, okay, well, there's a rock band calling themselves the Stooges, and then when you see the first record, when I was seeing that in the record store, it was like, okay, there it is, the Stooges, but they don't look like they're poking each other's eyes out. They actually look really dour and kind of like they're gonna rob you before they do anything. You guys look really kind of like And that picture on the front cover was just so. Like kind of these beautiful guys from like the street corner, like, you know, looking at you. And
that's I was like, what they were like.
So this Stooges is kind of a funny name, but they're not laughing. And so there's something, that was that kind of,
there's a tension.
There was a tension there. I was just like, what is this? And, you know, when I bought that record, because I was a kid, and the only records I could afford were the ones that you would find for, like in Woolworths for like 49 cents, and they were the cutout bins. And so there would be like, with the records that, like, the record labels,
we were there.
They didn't know how to sell them. So it'd be like all this kind of crap like Rhinoceros or whatever. And then, but then you would see things like Can and Amadou.
Yeah, sure.
Those were cool. And then it would be Stooges record.
Well,
and I remember like pulling that Stooges record out and bringing it home, like early 70s. It was so weird. Such a weird record, but something about it was like I kept playing it over and over again. Like, and especially when it would get to the end with "We Will Fall," like there was nothing on record like that for me.
No, that was good that we did that.
Yeah.
Ron came to me and said, "Look, we're about to record, and Dave doesn't have anything that he wrote, and Dave should have." That's just how we were. We were like, we were communists basically, and Dave should have something that he wrote on it. And Dave was always the truly psychedelic Stooge. he was the one reading Timothy Leary, and so it was his idea to do this Hindu chant that he liked, Om Shri Ram Jah, Ram Jaja Ram. And I think I came up with the melody that we chose, Om Shri Ram Jah, Ram Jaja
And then
Ram.
John Cale playing the viola.
And the viola is so bitchin'. He
yeah.
plays so beautifully. And I mean, a lot of people hate that track. This is the one song on that album that I hate. This is not a rock and roll song, and he just ruined the whole, you know, but
The Cale connection to me was really important because we were already hip to kind of the Velvets thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, he's involved with this. You know,
Yes.
that was weird too. It was
that
like, that gave it an extra
that was
boost.
Jack Holtzman that,
Yeah.
you know, that brokered that.
Yeah. And Funhouse, funny enough, is like I found that here in Miami as a kid.
Cheap,
also.
I'll bet, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if actually that one was full price.
All right.
I had heard about it, and I knew that there was a second album by these guys, but it was just so like weird and obscure.
Jack White said once, my favorite part of Funhouse is when Iggy says, take it down, and nobody does. They just ignore me, right? You know.
I would ride my bicycle to this one record store on Miami Beach when I'd stay at relatives. I saw it, you know, with that psychedelic cover, which looked like no other cover.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, here's that record, that second record. It was like one of those things, those days when you could actually sort of find surprises.
The cover was a
record
collage of shots of us playing. We played the Whiskey and the Old Fillmore during that trip, as you do. They say, okay, you guys go make your album in City X, and to pay some of the expenses, we got you some gigs on the weekend, you know.
Yeah.